Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I love every time we get together with her because we get insight on how life could be, how much better it could be with a better design within your home and also in your workspace. So many ideas she bounces out there, validates style and all of that. An amazing interior designer, and she is joined by a colleague today. So this is going to be interesting, almost like we're peeling back the curtain on what designers talk about. She is the owner of Rise Interiors. MaryJo Major is back with us. How you doing today?
Hey, Steve. I'm great. I'm super excited to be here.
Same. Good to have you back here.
Yes.
You make interior design fun, and I really mean that. Like I get excited every time we talk. I go home and I look around like, what can I do? What can I change there? And sometimes it's the simplest thing, like just adding, I'm embarrassed to say this, but adding a table lamp to my nightstand. Whoa. Like
they are needed.
I feel like a king. I have an app. So it's this far away. And I'm laying in bed like, all right, it's time to go to sleep. I just press the button. I don't even have to reach over and shut it off. But it just added so much warmth. And that was your suggestion. One of many. Who do we have with us today?
Yes, we have one of my best, closest design buddies, Meg Hoberg. She is super, super talented, and she's kind of my go-to buddy. I think everyone has a work colleague in their either office or kind of in their peripheral group of people, and she is one of mine. And I am super excited to just introduce everyone to her. And I would love to just kind of chit-chat of, like you kind of said, just peel back the curtain of what do we think? What goes on in our heads? How do we feel about stuff? I think everyone wants to know sometimes what a real, behind the design, I guess, like what designers really think about. And so I thought it'd be fun to have her on.
So believe it or not, I think her internet connection may not be the best. She's frozen on one screen, and I'm bringing her in on her phone.
She's coming. Yeah, she's coming in.
Yeah, I had a feeling it might not cut it today, but she's fine. She's working her way in here.
Yeah, wow. We'll wait. So I can give you a little bit of her backstory.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so she started she started her own firm around the same time I did. And which also makes it nice. I think when you both kind of start your own adventure together, you kind of have the same questions at the same time. And she has an interior design degree as well. She went to University of Alabama, and she is just a really kind of savvy designer. And so she lives on the Capitol Hill, and so I'll usually kind of talk to her specifically when it comes to kind of smaller spaces. Meg, I'm kind of sharing a little bit about your background.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Introducing who you are, how talented you are, and that we kind of started our own business at the same time.
So that's interesting. And then what was that moment that you guys met? Was it at a networking event? Like, how did you guys come together?
Wow. Yeah. So I'll give my 2-second version, and then Meg, you can give your 2-second. We had a mutual friend who knew both of us and kind of said to us individually, you guys need to connect. And I guess it was in the first few months of me moving actually to Washington, D.C. Right, Meg? I mean, I think it was in the fall.
Yeah, I think it was you were just fresh off the boat getting here right away. We both needed each other. It was a great first encounter.
Yes. I remember we started talking, Steve, and when you'd start talking to someone and there's sometimes like a lull in the conversation, and then you kind of go, you're like, all right, good to meet you. We'll kind of talk later. And that just never happened. Like, I think we talked on the phone for, I don't know, like 2 hours. I don't remember. It was a long time.
Time. And then in person, even longer. And it hasn't stopped. There have still yet to be a lull with MaryJo.
Right.
As you have learned, Steve. Yeah.
Do you feel, both of you, that people are put in our lives for it's a cliche, season or a reason, but the more I look at it and just analyze it a little bit, that's what I find. Even looking back a few years, I'm like, oh, that's why that person appeared. MaryJo, you were fresh to the DC area, and then the angel appeared, Meg.
That's right.
You feel it kind of happened that way?
I do. I mean, there's a lot of comfort in knowing that you're not alone. And I think especially when you start your own business, it's really isolating. You don't really have, especially in our field, there's not a lot of sometimes discussion between other designers. And so having just someone else to chat with about anything that came to mind, how do you apply for an EIN, just real basic, business stuff. So yeah. And she, Meg had lived in DC. Meg, I don't remember. You've been in DC like 20 something years at this point, right?
Right. Forever. Yes.
So it was also nice because I had, just questions about the city that she could answer.
And yeah, that is a great observation about life in general, Steve. And I totally feel like MaryJo came at such a providential time. She has truly been a godsend and gift to me. And I tell her and everybody we know all the time, I don't think I could be just doing my own business without her collaboration, and mostly just her emotional support and just being a cheerleader. I feel like we do that for each other, and and yeah, we just need it. I feel like she sharpens me. She gives me my best ideas, makes me look good, all the things, and just a dear friend. So it's just,
it's like the perfect relationship. You complement each other.
Yeah.
In different ways. Meg, I want to focus on you for a sec. I'm going to ask you some of the questions I've talked with MaryJo about in the past. What's your favorite thing about design? And what do you find is the most challenging? Is it a certain room? Is it a certain style? What is it? Both sides.
Yeah, those are both great. I think what drew me to design is just my love of beauty, love of space. I think MaryJo and I have similar background stories of just growing up, rearranging our bedrooms as little girls, just always being drawn to a good paint deck. I mean, I could just spend hours looking at paint colors. I mean, just weird stuff like that. So I think, and my parents were always redoing things in our house. So I think it just was a very obvious, just field to go in for myself. And I know MaryJo has a similar story. And there are so many challenges. I'm just trying to think of, yes. I mean, I feel like I am constantly taking deep breaths, just trying to encourage myself and my clients towards patience, towards, just being, mainly patience. But I would say the most challenging thing, and this sounds very broad, but is just the weightiness of just, stepping into this intimacy of people's, whether it's their home or their business. And you really get to know them. You get to, you get in the nitty gritty of their, their closets, their lives. And they're entrusting us with, one of their bigger financial investments. And they're trusting us with making their space truly a home or truly a life-giving workspace. And so I feel like it's just that, just that privilege, which is one of my favorite things, but also is the biggest challenge.
So I want to ask Meg, do you almost sometimes feel like a therapist when you're working with clients?
That's so funny. Yes. MaryJo and I talk about that a lot. Yes. Marriage counselor all the time, having to mediate, decision making. Just it's yes, for sure. And I actually love that part of it.
They're relying on you to change their life in terms of style, which is
sure.
I really feel life changing. But you're right. Marriage counselor, you have, one half likes this, one half doesn't like that, kind of blend in between what everybody likes, right, MaryJo?
Yes. Well, yeah, I was going to say on the same vein, yeah, I would say, I don't know what you would say to this, Meg. Maybe half of my clients, when they start the design process, think they want something, and then they realize they don't actually want that thing, or
Sure.
they like the idea of it, but they don't actually want it in their house. And so it's like this, I don't know, this weird kind of self-discovery process of they say they want this, and so you show it to them. And then the hardest part as a designer is when they come back and they say, I don't really like this. And in your head, you're like, what? This is exactly what you told me you wanted. So it's, yeah, you have to figure out, oh, right. Well, then let's ask him some more questions. What is it that you really want? Do you just like this color, or do you want something, you kind of have to ask these more follow-up questions, because sometimes, yeah, figuring out what actually makes people tick is its own
Ooh.
challenge.
Yes, I never thought of it that way. It's almost like you're a CSI investigator, trying to go deep into the facts pieces and of the puzzle, putting it all together to really figure
Yeah,
out. Because a lot of us don't even know what we like. I thought I
right.
liked this, but you know what? Now that I see it, I just bought a new car. Needed one. It's been a lot of years. I've always gotten white. Literally yesterday, took delivery, and I got just a gray color that I like. I didn't know I'd like that until they said, "Well, we have this one over here," and I'm like, "Oh, love at first sight. All right, I'm in. I'm
Yeah,
done with white. Okay."
that's
But
awesome.
you don't know
That's
until you
great.
know. Like I've never
Right.
thought I would get a gray car. I'm like,
Yeah,
man, I don't want a gray car until I saw it, and then I was like, all right, that is me now. All right.
yeah,
And I guess that's the other part. Our taste change, as
Mhm.
time goes on. Let's talk about design trends right now.
yeah.
So we'll go
Fun
to
stuff.
what's your favorite one right now? Meg, we'll get to you. We're going to start with MaryJo. What's your favorite design trend that's going on now?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. I have a few, but I think one of my favorites is whenever I see a chair, like something that's upholstered. So that's chair, sofa, whatever. And the fabric on the edge of it, it's called the piping. The fabric on the edge of it is a different color, or some sort of different
Hmm.
shade of the color, some sort of, it pops basically. So when you look at the piece of furniture, it kind of looks like it has like an outline on it, even though it's real little.
It almost sounds like a classic kind of thing that's come back. Would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. I think something I've seen a little differently this time around is that people are not scared to be a little bolder with it. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, they'll even do things, Steve. I've seen it where people will do, I think we talked about this in another episode. Um, it's called trim, and it's like this extra layer of fluff, or I don't know, a detail that you can add. Fluff is probably, it sounds, super, it sounds like you don't need it, but you really need it. And there's this fringe trim that people will put as the edge of their cushions. So
Mm.
when you sit, you don't, like, all around you is basically like this little ring of fringe. It sounds weird, but it looks really
Oh, I
beautiful.
could I could see it.
Yeah.
It adds some flavor, a little bit of
Hmm.
color, a little bit of
Hmm.
depth.
Hmm.
I'm seeing it, and
Okay.
I'm not disliking it. Like
Yeah, yeah.
with the right colors put together,
Hmm.
it could be in a pretty way striking.
Yes.
Just kind of
Mhm.
changing it up. How about you, Meg? Favorite design trend right now?
Yeah, I love what Mary Jo just mentioned with just how details can make such a difference and set apart a whole room, even with one um, piece of furniture, one, lampshade that maybe has a fabric on it with a design. And I will say, um, in addition to that, or maybe coinciding with that, is just bolder colors. I love a white kitchen. Much of my kitchen is white, but I also just feel like we're moving into an era of people just being drawn to just layering, and maybe bringing back some timeless
Hmm.
um, English, wallpaper that was designed in the 1800s, but has made a comeback. And just not being afraid to try bold paint colors
Hmm.
throughout, ceilings, trims, walls, and I'm a lover of color, and so yeah, that excites me. That I feel like my clients are more open to that because they're seeing it in the design world.
So you mentioned color, Meg.
Yeah,
And you'll do whatever anybody is asking you to do, but and the same thing with
sure.
the trend, and a
Hmm.
style and all of that. But we all have things that we gravitate to. What's your go-to color scheme? The one that you fall back on, and if somebody likes it, they're it's all good. But is
Hmm.
there a certain, warmer colors, cooler colors? What's your go-to?
Yeah, I love that question because again, I love color. I am an unashamed blue person. So I feel like any combinations that use any shade of blue excites me and I just yeah. And so I do
Mm.
feel like that happens a lot, with my clients, maybe because they see my aesthetic, through my website. But yes, that is my comfort zone.
How about you, Mary Jo?
Oh, Steve, it changes. Because I get kind of bored sometimes with certain colors, so I'm kind of go all over. I do love blues. I would say I gravitate towards sometimes more of like the teal blues or blues that have like a little bit of a green undertone. But I love the opportunity at any point to add pink, whether that's hot pink, light pink, magenta, like deep, kind of like purple, pink. And yeah, I wouldn't, so I don't know if I call it my go-to or more if I just keep an eye out if I can tell my clients open to it.
Hmm. And
And yeah, and I do love olive green. I've noticed I use that a fair amount. And I was going to follow up to something that you asked a little bit ago to Meg about, kind of when she was talking about bold color. Meg, I'm going to out you in one of her most recent designs. She did this, it was a laundry room, is that right? And like bright citron green,
ooh,
which is like yeah, not lime green and it's not yellow. It's like this real vibrant color though, all over. Wasn't it all over the walls or on the ceiling? I
All
don't
over
remember.
the walls. And that was, yes, that was a guest room, just a
There you go.
true chartreuse.
There you go.
Love it. Yes. I know. As you're mentioning colors, Mary Jo, I'm like, oh, yeah, I love pinks too. And I love olive green. And yes, all
Yeah.
huh.
of the above. But
Yeah.
yes, it is fun when we get the reins to go super bold.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I learned from Mary Jo a while back about color and people and age. And I'll just
Hmm.
share this
Mm.
with everybody because it
Oh
kind of
yeah.
surprised me.
Yeah.
The last house I bought, sold it 2 years ago, bought it in 2014. They had redone the entire place. And I
Mhm.
walk in and the colors on the walls are like, and this, what triggered this right now is you mentioned the hot pink. There was one bedroom, bam, hot pink. There was another one with this
What?
bright teal. I love
Oh,
greens.
wow.
Oof, big. I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice. Okay. As soon as I closed on it, those rooms are being painted. But
Right.
Mary Jo opened up my eyes, figuratively and literally, that older folks don't see color in the same way, and these
Yeah.
people a little bit older, that it's not as bright to them.
Right.
And
Interesting.
I was like,
Interesting.
wow, and that made perfect sense. Like I'm thinking, people, what are you doing, man? You spent money to paint these walls. Like either you're stuck in the 80s or you
Oh,
don't see how
right.
bright it is. But
Yeah.
yeah, I never realized that, but it does make sense. If you're not seeing, we see color, all of us in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Meg,
Oh, sure.
do you remember that client I had right when I moved to DC? And it was an older client. She was like
I
I think
do.
in her late 70s, and she had gone on her own to pick out a paint color. And I think it was called like Key West or something like that. And it was a Crayola green, limey,
Crayola.
like
Bad, bad.
it was
Yeah.
real intense. And she didn't see anything wrong with it. She, she
That's
was
a hard one.
she thought it was totally fine. And it is hard because, they are the ones that live there. So in some ways they need to be able to see it. And so it's, yeah, but as the professional, your job is to give them your
Mm-hmm.
opinion because they are trusting you, and
Yeah.
investing in your services. So you do need to kind of speak up about how you think, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Oh, okay.
anyway.
Let's go there right there.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, I guess you need to speak up, but you need to do it in a very tactful, loving
Mm.
way because you don't want to offend,
Yeah.
and you like them to know that maybe that's not the best choice. But
Mhm.
then I'm sure you
Mhm.
have those situations where, no, I love it. No, I really love that color. And then, am I right in saying you have to work around it? You have to make it
Yeah.
work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say, Meg, if someone, I mean, I have an idea, but if someone came and said, I love this, and in your head you're like, no, 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 please
Right.
don't do this. Um, yeah, I
Yes,
think we've talked about this before.
it does happen quite a bit. I'm so glad we're discussing this because I need to get better at it. So I need tips from Mary Jo. I am a people pleaser, which is hard in this
So am
field,
I.
but
So
I
am I.
am
Yeah.
getting tougher. And as Mary Jo will encourage me, put on your big girl pants, be bold, with all sorts of things. Yeah, but when it does come to colors, this is an area I do feel a little bit more confident in. And I'll just say to a client, okay, Benjamin Moore or Farrow and Ball or whatever company, we're looking at colors, they have narrowed it down to the favorites.
Mhm.
And I will say, okay, your teal you're looking at is great, but it's probably a little too saturated. I'll just try to educate them, and
Nicely,
this
nicely.
That's a good word.
this yeah, right, and just show them an option that is more tried and true. And
Mm.
yes, but then sometimes they'll just paint what they want to, which is fine, and we'll make the most of it with the rest
But
of their
maybe you
room.
can take it down a shade or two in their and it
Yes,
to their benefit. Got to
Mhm.
remember that one. It's a little saturated.
it's a little, yes, we search for those adjectives,
Yeah,
Steve. It's
that's a good
Right.
yeah.
one. Yeah.
Well, and I've had people, I mean, there's all kinds of things that people want, Steve, that you're kind of like, "Ooh, okay." I had a client once that had a duvet, um, yeah, that she really liked. And there was nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't necessarily as sophisticated as where I wanted the design to head. And so I do remember spending an extra amount of time thinking through, okay, how can I elevate this? How can you make this feel less, you know, uh I don't want to use the word juvenile, but just how do you make it feel like it is really sophisticated and elegant, and it fits with the rest of the design. And so we ended up finding some really kind of saturated earth tones that can kind of work with it, that again made it feel like it was just kind of part of the design and it wasn't so in your face. But yeah, you do want to be sensitive to people's preferences and tastes, while also, again, it's this balance between wanting them to have a house they love and also wanting to share with them. There, would you be open to for me to show you some other ideas? Or, I think that this is great. Would you be open to moving it over here? Or,
Hmm.
whatever it is, reupholstering, kind of figuring out if there's any sort of flexibility about how to use it in the space. And generally speaking, they just want their house to look good. So they're going to say, yes, that's fine. But
Well, yes,
yeah,
they hired you guys for a
Mhm.
reason. You have
yeah,
experience, training, it's et cetera, et cetera. You
yeah.
know better than the rest of us, but sometimes we get stuck on something.
Yeah.
We're out of
Mhm.
time. I just want to keep going. This is like so
I
Mhm.
cool.
know.
Like the
Yes.
the other side of things. Mary Jo, how do we find you? What's your website?
Yeah, my website is riseinteriors.co.
Gotcha. Can we share Meg's?
Yeah. Meg,
Sure.
yeah, is it just your name, right?
It's just my name.
There you
It's
go.
just yeah, my business is Meg Hoberg Design, but my website is just Meg Hoberg. But yeah, what a privilege to be with you two today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank
Yeah, it
you. It
was
was,
fun.
by the way, Meg is Hoburg is Hoburg. Um, so much fun, like getting the view
Yeah.
behind the scenes and just like the fly in the wall, so to speak, of hearing you
Yeah.
guys talk.
Yeah.
Wonderful being with you. And this podcast was definitely saturated. Got to tell you, with a lot of good stuff, a lot of
In
good
a great
content
way.
in a
Yeah.
great way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much,
Thanks.
Steve.
Thanks. We'll
Bye.
be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the mytuner-radio, onlineradiobox, and simpleradio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.